years after the diagnosis, and they made them the best years they could for him. He died at 10 in his mother's arms. Melissa had been relentless trying to find a cure for him and someone who would operate, but they were battling the inevitable from the beginning. Melissa had refused to accept Robbie's death sentence until it happened, and then her whole world caved in. He was her only child, and suddenly she was no longer a mother. The 2 years after his death were still a blur. She was half numb and half crazy. She had stopped writing a year after he got sick, and she never went back to work as a writer after that. Once a best-selling author, with 5 smash hits to her credit, she hadn't written a word in 7 years, and swore she never would again. Previously a driving force in her life, she had no desire to write now. All she cared about was her house, and she wanted to make it the most beautiful Victorian home in the world. It had replaced everything else in her life, even people. It was the outlet for her to soothe all her sorrows and vent the unbearable rage and grief she had felt. The agony was a little gentler now. Working on the house was the only way she could ease the pain she was in, using her hands, shifting heavy beams, rebuilding the fireplaces, helping the men to carry the equipment, and doing most of the carpentry herself. The house gleamed now, and was exquisite. The grounds were lush and perfectly maintained, the historic home restored until it shone. It was something to be proud of, and a symbol of her survival. Everything about it was a tribute to Robbie, who would have been 16 now, and had died 6 years before. Her marriage to Carson died with her son. For 2 years they had fought to keep him alive, and lost. After Robbie died, she no longer cared about anyone except the little boy who was gone. It still took her breath away at times, but less often now. She had learned to live with it, like chronic pain or a weak heart. Carson had been paralyzed with grief as well. They were both drowning, too lost in their own miseries to help each other. The second year after Robbie died was worse than the first. As the numbness wore off, they were even more acutely aware of their pain. And then she discovered that Carson was involved with another woman, a client of the literary agency where he worked. She didn't blame him for the affair. She wouldn't have had the energy to spend on another man, but she readily acknowledged that she had shut Carson out for 2 years by then, and it was too late to reverse it. She made no attempt to win him back or save the marriage. It was already dead, and she felt dead inside herself. Carson had been her literary agent for her 5 successful books. She'd found him after she'd written the first one, and took the manuscript to him at the recommendation of a friend. She was 31 then. He was bowled over by her talent and the purity and strength of her writing, and signed her on immediately as a client. She had worked for a magazine after college and had been writing freelance articles for several years before she wrote her first book. She attributed her success to the brilliant first book deal Carson made for her. After several glasses of champagne, they wound up in bed to celebrate, and a year later they were married. Robbie was born 10 months after their wedding, and life had been blissful until Robbie got sick. It was a respectable run. They'd had 11 happy years since they met. Carson was a respected and powerful agent, but he modestly claimed no credit for Melissa's dazzling success. He said she was the most talented writer he'd ever worked with. When she stopped writing to take care of Robbie, neither of them thought it would be the end of her career. Afterward, she said simply that she had no words left, and no desire to write. The profound, visceral need to write that she'd had for all of her youth and adult life had simply left her. Robbie took it with him, was all she said. No amount of urging by Carson or her publishers